up at 4 in the morning.
So yesterday I had a customer come in and drop off this Ferris zero turn. And he dropped off because the PTO clutch will no longer engage. And the PTO clutch is what turns the blades of the mower. Now, if you guys watch my stuff, I made a video of this mower maybe like 2 years ago. I had to put a hydraulic wheel motor into this tractor. So I'll add my video of me putting a hydro in this Ferris zero turn in the link below. But the guy uses it, he loves it. Unfortunately, the PTO is no longer engaging and he can't cut the grass. I have to go to a bachelor party this weekend, so I only got 3 days to get this done. It should be no big deal, but time will tell. Now this motor can mount actually in either direction. It can mount either vertically or horizontally, and what I mean by that is the shaft itself, where the PTO is hooked on, can either mount horizontally or it can mount vertically. A lot of the X Marks, the Laser Zs, are mounted horizontally. So that means the PTO is underneath this zero turn, so we're going to have to jack it up to get underneath it. Now, just to reiterate, when the customer turns this motor on, and when he's running it, if he pulls this up, this engages the PTO, and the PTO does not turn. So this renders the mower pretty much useless. So there's really only a few things that could be wrong causing that PTO to not work. One is you could have blown a fuse, and then you got to ask, well, why did I blow a fuse? Well, you could have blown a fuse because of a loose wiring, or the PTO could be going bad, that it's creating a lot of drag and pulling over current. That's one thing. There are relays. Relays on these units do go bad. They go bad over time. They could shatter because of dust, debris, or there could be some underlying factor like a loose wire connector that caused it to go bad. That's that. The other thing is you might just have a broken wire. I see broken wires on these PTOs all the time. Remember, you're mowing. A lot of people don't give a fuck and they're running over sticks, branches, and whatnot. And those branches get stuck on the wires and rip the wires out. So that's a strong possibility. The other one, quite simply, and I hope it's not, but the PTO could be bad. Now, before I decide to jack up the mower and start looking at and inspecting the PTO, I do want to test to make sure that I have proper voltage going to the PTO. So the way the voltage path is it goes from the battery to the fuse box here, which blows in the event you overdo it. And then it goes to one of these two coils here. And then these coils provide the applicable amperage to the PTO. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the key on with all the safeties met in the mower. And then I'm going to test to see if I can, one, hear the PTO on, and I know we won't because we know it's not working, or to see if we hear or feel the relay catching. Now, you need to make sure your e-brake is on, and you're going to need to make sure that your seat safety is met, which is this one here. So what I did is I pushed down on it and just put a bearing. There's just a spare bearing I had laying around just to make sure that the safety permissive was met. The interesting thing that I found is these three are all, look how old they are. They're discolored and old. And then this one's a brand new one. So this one has been replaced before, but I actually am not, I can't imagine that these are all supposed to be 20 amp fuses. It seems a little bit overkill to me, but let's just pull them and see what they look like. So I use a needle nose and then I just lever the block. So this fuse looks good. Okay, let's put that aside. Take a look at this one. And whoa. Look at that. See, that one got hot. It didn't, I don't know if it blew it. It doesn't look like it blew it, but it definitely got hot. So we're going to have to replace that one. Let's take a look at this. Jesus. That one got really hot. Although it looks like it's intact. Let's look at this one. That one's in good shape still. I think it is. Is it cracked? Might be broken. I can't tell. Let's put these on a meter and test them real quick. I got my voltmeter and I'm just testing for continuity. Okay, so this one's good. This thing's like wilted away. It's wilted away, but look, it's still good. Let's check this one. Still good, even though it got hot. And the clean looking one is good. We're gonna replace them all anyway, just in case, but all these fuses, believe it or not, do check out that they're working. So even though these looked bad and they got hot, and they definitely did, we're gonna have to look at a wiring diagram to see what type of fuses are supposed to be in there. I have to assume it's supposed to be like a 5, 15, maybe a 20 or so. But yeah, we'll see. All right, so what I did is I took my air gun and I blew out all the shit out of the fuse terminals, because you saw those were like almost burnt. And then I cleaned all the crap from these little coils as well down here. So I had 15 amp fuses, so I just put those in. Plus I have so many of them, so if I blow them, I don't care. But this will at least allow me to do some more testing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the key on, and we should hear at least a coil kick on for the starting system. You hear that? So we got one coil that started, so that's good. And with all the safeties met and the seat down, I'm going to turn the PTO, pull the PTO switch up. And I do not hear the PTO engaging. Yeah, I do not hear the PTO engaging. So now on all the zero turns now are going to have probably like 2 to 4 of these coils. Now, if you don't have a coil readily available, then you're going to have to do some more testing, which we're going to have to do anyway. But in this case, let's flip these coils because we have 2. So we know we have at least one good working coil. The reason why we're flipping them is when we turn power on, if we hear the little coil click, then at least we know that both coils are bad, because we know the one fires, and now we're going to swap to see the other one. So let me turn the key on. You can hear that go on too. So that leads me to believe that we have good voltage supply to the coils, and that electrically here, we're on a good path. So now we got to look at the PTO. All right, we got our face down, ass up. Let's take a look at that coil. Well, well, well. What the fuck do we have here? Wire nuts here. Looks like the wires were taped here. Looks like the wires got taped again. Holy hell. This thing was spliced again? How many splices are in this thing? No, there's no... Okay. So this is kind of hilarious now. So I got so many splices in this. I bet you this is the problem. So let's hook up my power probe and see if the coil is good or bad. What I'm going to use to test the PTO on this mower is the power probe. I'll put a link to this in the description below. But this power probe is extremely, extremely handy. I use this thing all the freaking time. You take these 2 connectors and you put them on a battery for pretty much anything, but I use it on tractors and mowers. You put this on the negative, this on the positive, and then you put this clip onto your negative circuit, and then you could use this to probe and apply 12 volts of voltage to anything. Could be a coil, could be the starter, could be whatever. And what we're going to do is we're going to put 12 volts of voltage to the PTO to see if the PTO is good. If we get good power to the PTO, then we know we have an issue in the wiring somewhere. But if we are probing all the way at the source of the PTO and we get nothing, then at least we know that the PTO is bad. So let's test it. All right, so I disconnect this fucked up harness, and this thing is just hilarious to hear. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my power probe and I am going to probe this plug.
Now, the way they want this coil, they want the negative on the bottom, positive up top, so we will accommodate them. So I'll use this clip, and I'm just sticking it in there. And you can see it's good. It says it'll take it, so I'm going to put 12 volts to it and see if anything happens. You can hear it's trying to click. It's trying. Not giving me a good signal, but it's trying. So let's disconnect some of these wire nuts and see if I can get a better signal. So this was the positive. That's how it was wired. So let's, man, so much oil and shit. There's probably a ton of resistance on this thing. So I got the negative on that wire, and let's give 12 volts to this wire. Okay, it sounds like it's taking it, but it's subtle. It's not as aggressive as I'm used to it. So with my meter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to verify that I either have good voltage to this end of the plug here, or I have no voltage. So what I'm going to do is take my voltmeter, put it to 12 volts to read voltage, and I am putting my 2 prongs in here. And I'm taking my 2 prongs, and I'm seeing what the meter says. And what does that meter say? So it's 12. And looking at that meter, it says 12.3. So that tells me that I am getting good voltage to this wire. And so now it's got me wondering, so if this rat nest that we had made this coil go bad, or maybe we do have a bad coil. So I want to test this coil one more time. And let me give this coil 12 volts. It's interesting, you can hear the PTO trying to click, but it just doesn't sound right. So I'm hoping we just had a wiring issue, but it's always cool to see like what the hell is this thing comprised of. So let's take this thing apart, because there's really not that much to it. So this is your main pulley with your bearing. This is like a clutch disc here, all right? So you always want to inspect this. This is going to be worn down. You want to make sure there's no dirt, debris. I might actually try to clean this up with some Scotch-Brite real quick. But let's look at the other parts. So this is like your disc, your clutch disc, kind of. And this looks fairly good too. You do get some grime in here, so we're going to want to clean that up as well. And then, yeah, we'll clean this surface too. This here is the main magnetic coil. So when you're sending 12 volts to this thing, this is what you're getting, this is what's being magnetized. And so if there's any dust, debris, and I see there's like rust and shit here, so we're going to clean this up too. And then we're going to test it. So unfortunately, guys, after further review, I was cleaning this stuff up, and I found that this coil has a crack down here. It's like really hard to see, but there's a crack down in here where the wiring goes. And there's a lot of oil and debris here, so I don't think this coil is as strong as it should be. And I think it's probably working intermittently, and probably there's a lot of resistance in that coil. So I do have a used coil on the side here. This is like my spare testing coil that I use. This customer does not want a brand new one, so I am going to sell him one of the used coils I have. These coils are crazy expensive, so whenever I scrap a tractor or anything, I always take the PTO. So what the other nice thing is, this thing has a very good and healthy pigtail compared to the rat's nest we were working on. So I'm going to clean this one up. We'll put it together and then test it. Alright, let's build this thing. So this, yep, I know she's magnetic. Strong. This is going to have to sit in there, okay? And that's going to spin around the magnet. This is going to be our clutch disc. It's strong. This thing's a lot stronger than the other one. Magnetically strong, I should say. Okay. Alright. Alright. There we go. She's in there. That's in there. Okay. So it stops it. So that's the brake. Alright, so now let's apply positive voltage to this one and see what it does. Let's test this puppy. Sounds good. Well, let's put it in and test it. Alright, I just plugged it in, zipped that. Let's turn the key and see if the coil turns on. Alright. Key on. I'm going to pull the PTO up. Well, that sounds good. Man, listen to that. She's gripping good, real good. Well, that's good news. Let me throw this thing back together and see if it'll cut grass. You ever got those nights where you're just gassy as all hell? I got that.